Hello, I'm Jorge Gestoso. Welcome to a new program. What can we expect after the acquittal of President Donald Trump? We ask our guest, the attorney Josef Malouf. Josef Malouf, a warm welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Joseph, what do you think that was a real reason why the Democrats were impeaching Donald Trump, knowing that they didn't have the 20 members of the Senate that they were needing to get the majority and have it precisely guilty?
Well, that's a good question, because a lot of people realize that the Democrats never were going to have 67 votes to impeach and remove the president.
With two-thirds.
With two-thirds of the Senate, which is 100 senators. Now, it doesn't mean that they weren't going to try to impeach the president and try to get it. I think at the end of the day, what they really wanted was to leave a mark on this president as a president who has been impeached, someone who has had that process against them because of behavior, which even if it isn't sufficiently serious to be removed, that it was sufficiently serious to be impeached.
Only the third in the history of the U.S. to be impeached.
Absolutely, the third to go through the process, which shows you how important it is. And at the end of the day, they also felt they wanted to tell the country what this president really does behind closed doors. There were a lot of meetings and phone calls. We had an ambassador, Sondland, for example, explain how the president and he were talking on a telephone that was unsecured phone, that people could be eavesdropping in a restaurant in the Ukraine, and yelling at the president, and president's yelling back that, you know, the president of Ukraine is going to do whatever you want. I mean, these are heads of states. These are serious government officials. And they're talking about favors for political campaigns that the country would have never known had the Democrats not impeached President Trump. I know that it was frustrating for many people, and even Nancy Pelosi didn't want to have to do that. But, you know, we can't allow this behavior to become normal. President Trump has been very effective at normalizing criminal behavior and making it look like it's okay to do it because he's the president. It is not okay. The president has to give the example to America, to the children, to everyone, that you follow the law and you do what is right. And it's not about taking advantage of people and forcing other people or using money to leverage a personal favor. That money wasn't his money. It was the people's money.
Already approved by the Congress.
Approved by the Congress. And if the president tried to say, well, you know, I care about corruption. He never asked about the Biden's corruption ever before. This is the third year he sends money to Ukraine. So it's questionable that his intentions were dealing with corruption. He never said that in any of the phone calls. The one in July, on July 25th. So this president tried to get away with getting a little help for the election. To some people in the Republican Party, that seems to be acceptable. At least to one of them, Senator Mitt Romney, was not okay. He followed his conscience and his religion. And why religion? Well, because he took an oath when he started the trial to be impartial and to do impartial justice. Well, impartial justice means you put aside your party. That's why it's called impartial. So it doesn't have the party next to it. And if you're impartial and you follow the law, he says, the only conclusion is that the president is guilty. And other senators, like Collins and others, also said the president was guilty. Lamar Alexander, who's retiring, another Republican senator, said that President Trump was guilty. But that what he did just wasn't enough. Here's what wasn't enough. What wasn't enough is the fact that they didn't have enough time to nominate another Republican candidate that wasn't going to be Mike Pence. Because if the president is removed from office, he's not eligible to run again for office. So if President Trump had been removed, then the Republicans would have lost the White House because they wouldn't have enough time to put somebody up there other than Mike Pence. Mike Pence hasn't raised any money. Mike Pence is not, in my opinion, a stronger candidate as Donald Trump is. And so that's the real reason why they didn't want to follow the law. And the question is that a good example to our children? That if it's not going to help me, let's not follow the law. Sometimes you have to follow the law. So I commend the Democrats for having presented the impeachment trial and at least put it on television, national television, well, international television, everything about this trial so that people could see what the president does.
And it could be a new impeachment?
Well, you know, the president, when people were talking about impeaching him, they were talking about Russia and talking about the obstruction of justice.
Originally was that the idea.
That was it. Nobody thought that the president, in the meantime, had been cooking up another sort of criminal scheme on the side, which he was, apparently with Ukraine. So at this point...
A drug deal, as John Bolton.
John Bolton hasn't testified. The House intends to bring him in under subpoena, and he would have to testify now that he's not going to fight it through the courts for the next 5 years, and be able to say what else the president did. There might be other things. It was a drug deal because they were hiding it, and the phone call was put in a different secret server. Why? Because they didn't want people to listen to it. Why not? Why did Lindman and all the other people who listened on the phone call became alarmed? Why did the whistleblower file a report? All of these things is because that behavior was not okay. What he did was tell another country that was at war, in the middle of their war with Russia, out of all countries, for the territory that they've already lost in Crimea. And they tried to force him to announce, not to do, but to announce a fake investigation against Joe Biden and his son, just to help him during the election.
Because at that point was the rival that was looking like with more chances to
And it might still be. Joe Biden's still a leader in this Democratic primary, and I think Trump fears him, fears others, but if he is going to use the government money, the people's money, to fight in a regular campaign against his opponents, he can't do that. That's not constitutional.
So you think that could be possible in another impeachment?
Absolutely. I don't know what else this president could have done. But if he gets reelected and the Congress remains in the hands of the Democrats, there will be 4 additional years, and he could become the first president to be impeached twice.
The revenge has started from Trump to all the people who were participating in this impeachment, and we see as you said, Lieutenant Littman, the former Ambassador Sondland. There is this journalist from Vanity Fair, Gabriel Sherman. He put it in Twitter. He said that Trump is working on a list of enemies, the same style of Richard Nixon, he said, and Bolton is at the top, but according to him, also in the list, you see Schiff, Nadler, Romney, Pelosi, and so on and so forth. You think it's possible?
Absolutely, and I predict that's what he will try to do. The difference between Richard Nixon is that Richard Nixon did not stay at the White House and did not continue to have the power of the White House in order to seek revenge against those who testified against him, like John Dean and others. But this is different here. Trump is in power. They've already testified, and he's already started to take action against them. Now, we have laws in this country that allow people to testify freely, especially if under subpoena, free of retribution, let alone from the commander-in-chief. So this is another basis why Democrats could still consider another impeachment if the president continues to intimidate witnesses and seek revenge against them. And to have people thrown out of the White House, like Lieutenant Colonel Vindman and his twin brother, who had nothing to do with this, just the fact that he's a brother and he's a twin and he works in the same building, for some reason that justifies throwing him out with security in the middle of the day. That's not appropriate. That's clearly not what a president does. These people are members of the military, and they will continue to be, and were being transferred to another office. Now, with regard to Gordon Sondland, the ambassador that he named, only because Sondland gave him $1 million. Sondland is not a professional diplomat. Sondland is a hotel developer that Trump met years past and offered Trump $1 million if he named him ambassador. And he did. Trump accepted the money for his inaugural parties, which is under investigation because apparently Ivanka, his daughter, also handled contracts between the government and the hotel, Trump Hotel in D.C., where some of that money apparently ended up in Trump's pocket. So these donations that were given to the inaugural parade ended up in the hands of the hotel. So there's a question as to what happened with that. But Sondland, he wasn't a professional. He followed the law. He was afraid that if he didn't follow a congressional subpoena that he would get in trouble. And to now throw him out. And I assure you, Trump is not going to return his $1 million donation.
Do you believe that Donald Trump is using or is going to use more and more his acquittal as a tool in his political campaign?
Yes, he's going to use it and say, you know, the Democrats are against you, to his base. He says things like, you know, they don't want you to vote for me. They want trying to keep you from voting. They want to destroy your country. They hate you, which is not true. You know, people who have a different party are not necessarily going to hate each other for that, or they shouldn't. If we're at that point, we need to change. But I think Trump is going to use it and say that to give energy to his followers and say, look at what they're doing to us. That's why we have this, so that, you know, we have a cause to fight. He might unite his party, but the Democrats are going to use it very effectively against Trump when we get close to the election and they start watching the videos of Ambassador Yovanovitch, Colonel Vindman, and all the other witnesses, and you start hearing what the president was doing, and maybe read the book for John Bolton that says that this was a drug deal. And I think a lot of people are not going to want to vote for a president that breaks the law and has no morals.
Giuliani continues to say that he has things against the Bidens that wants to show, and William Barr, that is the Attorney General, says that they're going to go through a different procedure to evaluate what Giuliani has to bring to the table before to really take it seriously. But the idea is, do you think that they're going to continue to investigate the Bidens, and what sort of role William Barr is playing in administering the quote-unquote justice?
This is a very difficult situation that we're in now, and that is the president is using his private lawyer to do foreign affairs. He's not a diplomat, and to pursue a conspiracy theory. Now, Joe Biden, who's never been accused of having done anything wrong, Hunter Biden, his son, who's a lawyer, who graduated from one of the best law schools in the country, from Yale, who was hired as a lawyer. He was not hired to develop energy, because they criticized him and said, well, he was going to work for Burisma in energy, and he doesn't have anything to do with energy. Well, he wasn't hired as an energy man. He was hired as a lawyer. And the law is the same. He's discussing law, writing contracts, reading contracts, nothing unusual, and they paid him. And the investigation was done years ago. They found nothing wrong with it. So now the president is trying to give credibility to that conspiracy theory by saying that Giuliani is going to work with the Department of Justice and that real FBI agents are going to pursue this. Well, the president should have pursued that 3 years ago. The fact is he's still trying to pursue it, or at least now. I guarantee you that by November, you'll never hear about any more investigations in Ukraine. The president is doing this on purpose to try to promote this theory that he's the victim and that the Bidens are corrupt, just in case Joe Biden gets the nomination.
So in the case of William Barr, is he really representing the interests of the government, of the people, or what?
I think he's representing the interest of Donald Trump, the president, and Donald Trump, the person. He's not representing the office of the government that is designed to protect every victim from every criminal, including the president.
But I mean, in that case, you can really believe that there is an independence of the justice here?
There is none. The Justice Department and the State Department under Mike Pompeo and Justice Department under Bill Barr both work for Donald Trump, the person, the businessman. It's what he wanted. He eventually got rid of everyone who followed the Constitution and followed the law and was ethical and moral. He got rid of all of them, one by one. And he's now left with the worst people that you can ever get in positions of power. Why? Because they wouldn't break the law for him before. Now they do. Now they're willing to do it. Those are the signs of a dictator, in my book, not the signs of a healthy democracy.
We are about 9 months away from the elections, November. From the Democratic side, there are two wings or two areas. What do you think that is going to happen?
Well, the Democrats have a difficult road ahead because the party is divided in two. There's a group like Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar. These are the candidates right now in the Democratic Party that have the most support. And they are moderates. They are willing to insure more Americans, but they're not going to get rid of the private insurance, and they're not going to make 100% of the whole insurance industry socialized. That's Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. They are willing to do that. That's what they're offering. They're offering free universities for state universities for tuition for those who reside in the state, where the moderates are saying, we'll give you some scholarships and some discounts and some will reduce it. So they're very distinct, there's no doubt. And it's difficult. I think the country they want a change. They want something big, and the biggest change is being offered by Bernie Sanders. He's the one that offers the biggest changes. However, Pete Buttigieg, in the other side of the moderates, has also been able to pull some votes from Biden, and he speaks well. He's highly intelligent. He seems well thought out. So we miss that sort of a president from the White House now, that we don't have any of that. So he's pulling ahead. But there could be a surprise down in these elections.
Because in the case of Bernie Sanders is saying, with the status quo, we're going nowhere. So therefore, we really have to, as you said, present a real alternative. And the real alternative is we have to fight inequality. Cannot be that 3 people in this country have the same fortune that the other 50%.
Let me give you 5 things that Bernie Sanders is offering to do which would change America forever. Okay. Number 1, every single citizen in this country, there's 330 million Americans, would be insured, would never have to pay a copayment, would never have to pay for medicine, would never have to pay to see a doctor, would never have to pay to get an MRI, X-ray, any exams. 100% free forever. That's one thing. Second thing, no one working would make less than $15 an hour in the country. So people are going to live better, especially lower income, new entry jobs are going to live a lot better a life without paying for any insurance and getting $15. Number 3, there'll be free education for those who are intelligent but can't pay for it, because it's gotten so expensive in America to go to school. Whether it's a state school or a private school, the prices are between $40,000 to $100,000 a year to go to college versus $0 to go to college, which is what he suggests with state schools. Student loans, number 4. People are in debt. Some of them go to school, to become a medical doctor, you could spend $200,000, $300,000, up to $500,000 in loans just to get to graduate. Then you graduate, and now you owe $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month for your payments. It just doesn't get a lot of people excited about going to medical school. So Bernie Sanders is saying no more of that. You'll be able to write off all your loans, student loans. And obviously trade and business, the way that he is focusing, is all for unions to protect employees in the working class. Now, the working class is the largest group in America. And if the working class voted for Trump because they thought he was going to fix their problems, they might just be willing to vote for Bernie and have him fix them.
And the new phenomenon.
Yes.
Michael Bloomberg, what do you think? Is he going to be, at the end of the day, the candidate, the halfway from Bernie and the moderates and this multi-billionaire?
Well, not necessarily. I think Michael Bloomberg definitely throws a new analysis to all of this that we had just done, because it is a surprise that he is rising very fast. Now, Bloomberg started as a Republican. He is now an independent Democrat, whatever. But he obviously
is Trump started like a Democrat and ended up.
Trump was a Democrat, turned into a Republican. But Michael Bloomberg has the story to tell about his success that everybody thought Trump had and why they voted for him. He's self-made multi-billionaire. He invented something for Wall Street when he worked there. It's a computer, it's a terminal called Bloomberg Terminal Computer. And this Bloomberg computer will analyze all of the data from the stock market so that you could buy stock, sell stock. So the Bloomberg reports, all of the Bloomberg enterprises, it's his creation from scratch that's made him over $60 billion. To me, that is what the country was hungry for when they elected Donald Trump. A success story, somebody that can. And Bloomberg has 12 years experience running the biggest city in America, New York City, with 8 million residents. He's demonstrated in 12 years that he wants the people to re-elect him in a state which is just the demographics, 54% Latino and African American. They elected Bloomberg. To me, Bloomberg could take it all and leave everyone behind.
Basically, you think that it's going to be at the very end the fight for the presidency between two billionaires?
I think there could be three people here involved. I think there's Bloomberg, clearly for the new thing and some successful businessmen. Number two, I think you have Joe Biden. You can't write him off completely. And Bernie Sanders. Now, Joe Biden is not done well yet because he's in the North with states don't have a lot of support from minorities, which he'll pick up in the South. And I think Biden is going to be serious. Buttigieg is trying to catch up to him, and he might pass him. And then that'll be another surprise. But there's so many people right now with possibility in the Democratic Party that I think it's breaking up the party a little bit. I hope that we can all, bring it together at the end.
Between Trump and whoever, who's going to be the winner?
I think Bloomberg. I think that's going to be the whoever. I think he's going to win. I don't think President Trump, look, he won the last election because 4 states in the United States voted for him that otherwise vote for Democrats. And because we have a college, the Electoral College, only 70,000 votes approximately were the result of Trump getting elected. I think the president has demonstrated he can keep a promise. And the ones that he keeps are not the ones he should have kept. They're bad promises, like trying to build a wall in the border with Mexico, the budgets, cutting off food stamps for people, just all the horrible things he's done. In my mind, he has to lose at least those 70,000 voters. And Michigan is paying a lot of attention, Pennsylvania, Florida, and Wisconsin, which were responsible for this mess, I think are going to vote differently.
Josef Malouf, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.